Welcome to my channel Rise and Shine. For the elders, I offer my respects, and for the younger ones, I send lots and lots of love. In our last video, we have heard that the question which troubled Narendranath most was whether there is a God or not and whether anyone had seen him. Then he met with Sri Ramakrishna Deva. Sri Ramakrishna said that we can see and speak to God just as we see and speak to our friends. Sri Ramakrishna was confident that Naren would someday become a great man. Now, I like to request all the younger ones, please close your eyes and listen the next part of the story. At the Kashipur garden house, Naren's life had been completely upset by his father's death. His mind was in a turmoil. He found peace only at the feet of Sri Ramakrishna. In 1885, Sri Ramakrishna began to suffer from a sore in his throat. It became worse, and finally it was learned that he had cancer, a terrible disease. His disciples and devotees came forward to help him. A garden house was rented for him at Kashipur. He moved there, and many of his young disciples began to stay there and nurse him. Naren was one of those who spent most of their time at Kashipur. He sometimes had to go to Kolkata on family business, but he spent the rest of his time with Sri Ramakrishna. Naren and other disciples devoted themselves to the service of their master. Naren was their leader. When they had time, they would gather together and sing, study, or discuss the great qualities of Sri Ramakrishna. Naren wanted very much to realize God, to see God, for he felt that this was the only purpose of life. Sri Ramakrishna gave him many hints about how to meditate, and he spent much time in meditation. He had wonderful experiences during meditations. Sometimes he would completely forget the outside world. Once Naren and Sri Girish Chandra Ghosh, the great poet and dramatist, sat under a tree for meditation. Girish tried to meditate, but there were too many mosquitoes. They buzzed around his head and bit him, and he could not meditate. He wondered if Naren was able to meditate. So he opened his eyes and to see what he was doing. He was surprised to see that mosquitoes covered Naren's body like a blanket. But Naren did not seem to feel anything since he was lost in meditation. One evening, Naren had the highest spiritual experience. While meditating, he forgot the outside world and even his own body. He thought of nothing but God and God alone. His mind was literally filled with God. He felt great joy and happiness. This experience is called Samadhi. Sri Ramakrishna began to prepare Naren for the work he was to do later. He asked Naren to look after the other young devotees and to see that they continued to practice meditation. One day, Sri Ramakrishna asked them to bake their food from door to door as the sadhus do. The food they collected was offered to Sri Ramakrishna. He ate it with great joy and said that such food was pure. He also gave orchard robes to the boys, and in this way initiated them as monks. The end came all too soon. On August 16, 1886, Sri Ramakrishna passed away, leaving his disciples full of sorrow. Some stayed at Kashipur Garden House for a time, and others returned home and began to study. Naren, however, started to organize them into a monastic brotherhood. At the Barranagar Math, the young monks could not stay at Kashipur for long, since the rent of the house was too high. But with the help of a devotee, they rented a smaller house at Barranagar. Here they established the first monastery of the Ramakrishna order. The house was old and decayed. The garden was full of weeds. Cobra lived under the ground floor of the house, and local people believed there were ghosts in the house. It was a strange place, but the young monks lived there because the rent was cheap. It was also quiet and peaceful. They were very poor. There were hardly enough clothes, and their food was not good. For months they had nothing to eat but rice and some boiled leaves. Naren and the others cared nothing for this. They thought only of God. Naren was the leader. He went to those boys who had returned home and persuaded them to join the monastery. Naren looked after them and inspired them to think of God. They meditated for long hours. They sang songs. They discussed the religious idea of all sects and religions. They tried to follow everything that Sri Ramakrishna had taught them. During this period, they took the monastic vows of Sanyasa. They also took new names. Naren, however, did not take a permanent name. And when he wandered through India, he changed his name now and then. Sometimes he used the name Swami Vivekananda and sometimes other names. When people speak of him now, they often call him Swamiji. That's all for today. Today, we have heard that how deeply Naren meditated. Girish Chandra Ghosh, surprised to see that mosquitoes covered Naren's body like a blanket. But Naren didn't seem to feel anything since he was lost in meditation. On August 16, 1886, Sri Ramakrishna passed away. After that, the young monks could not stay at Kashipur for long since the rent was too high. But with the help of a devotee, they rented a smaller house at Barranagar. During this period of time, Naren and the other disciples took the monastic vows of Sanyasa. Now, I like to request all to close your eyes and try to visualize what you have listened today. Good night.